How are we going to bring down the national unemployment rate, bring it down lower than that 8.2%? Here's one idea. According to the Transportation Equity Network, if 20 metropolitan areas shifted 50% of their highway funds to mass transit, they would generate 1.1 million new transit jobs over a 5-year period, and a net gain of 180,000 jobs over 5 years. And that is without a single dollar in new spending. Transportation literally can be a vehicle of employment. Still with me at the table, Bob Franken, Joy Reid, Wade Henderson, and Maya Wiley. So, Maya, those are the statistics you were just talking about. Yeah. We got transportation money. We don't have to put them in highways. We can put them into public transportation.
Yeah, this is a critically important point. And, Wade mentioned the reauthorization of transportation funding. And the best thing about that bill is it's 27 months long because it's really not a very good bill. In fact, Bus Riders Union in Los Angeles, other community-based groups where communities of color very disproportionately dependent on public transit. We haven't said a little bit more about those numbers. You have 1 in 9 black people in this country dependent on public transit. That's 4 million people. That's 52 football stadiums worth of people. 27% of the jobs in the 100 biggest metropolitan areas in this country are actually not accessible. I was going to say 27% of working adults are without access.
We know that these are the top 5 places where it's worse. So we can look at the areas: Augusta, Georgia; Jackson, Mississippi; Knoxville, Tennessee; Greenville, South Carolina; Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it seems to me part of what's important about that is those are southern spaces, right? That are growing in population, right? We're not in Detroit and building those kinds of things anymore. We're coming to the South, and then you have this transportation.
Well, Melissa, the thing that's so important, particularly about your point about the South, one of the things, it's state law too. So 30 states in the nation do not allow state gas taxes, state gas revenue to go to public transit. To draw down on federal transportation dollars for state and local projects, you have to have a 20% match. Most cash-strapped states are not able to draw down their match, and local communities aren't allowed to collect it based on gas revenue.
Bob mentioned the power of the highway lobby, and I don't think we should underestimate that. I think that what we saw in this most recent reauthorization was the power of that lobby asserting itself again. The construction industry recognizing that infrastructure is an important part of the highway bill, and that jobs and construction are really important. So I don't begrudge that. I think the issue, however, is that if you paint this as an issue that benefits minorities more or less exclusively and fail to acknowledge the other populations
for everybody
to be affected, we're dead. So I would only remind people, and I think Maya is right, this is a 27-month bill. We've learned a lot from how to move Congress on these issues. And I remind you of the words of A. Philip Randolph, the great labor leader who was one of the founders of my organization. Look, there are no free seats, guys, at the table of life. You get what you can take, you keep what you can hold, and you can't take it and you can't hold it unless you're organized. And that's what this lesson is all about.
Here's what's so interesting about what Maya was saying. The rationale for denying the use of highway gasoline taxes for anything but constructing highways is that, it's created by the use of highways, therefore it should go back to that, which is comparable to saying that the alcohol tax should only go back
and
that kind
more
of
liquor.
But that is the kind of distortion that has been successful.
And I think we're also I think we're leaving off the responsibility of governors here. We're talking a lot about Congress, but you have several governors, including in Florida, in New Jersey, and others, who are resisting the idea of building rail, resisting the idea of using federal money.
FBJ, forget Bobby Jindal. I am just sick of it.
And this is a huge issue. I mean, I know in Florida, rail would be hugely important. There are major pockets of urban communities, of rural populations. This is not a racial issue, who have no access to jobs, where jobs are, because they don't have things like rail. And governors are saying, no, we don't want that.
Well, and look, part of my railing against Governor Jindal is in part, as Bob was saying, it's jobs, and yes, it's access and equity, but it's also, we live in a place where hurricanes sometimes show up, right? And they show up for communities that don't have access to private vehicles or have insufficient access to private That's right. So we've got to be able to have reasonable ways also of talking about safety, public safety and evacuation.
Well, I wanted to connect Wade's point, which was so important about this. It's not just an issue for certain communities. It's really about everyone, with Bob's point about history. Because the 30 states that I mentioned, a number of those states passed those laws in the 50s in reaction to efforts to desegregate. So when we talk about how we create jobs for everyone in this nation, race becomes still one of the central factors that holds us back from creating jobs and helping everybody get access to those jobs where they
exist. It's the story about like the Montgomery buses that you think to yourself, well, what is the great Montgomery bus system now? And the answer is they just, once it had to integrate, they just disinvested.
Right. Here's an idea. Okay, Texas, the issue is voting rights and getting proper ID, and one of the issues is that the people who can't get to the ID are 2 counties away.
Exactly.
Build a mass transit system that operates between where they are and where the voting registration line is, solving the problem.
Rick Perry, I love it. Rick Perry, we need some light rail to get people to their voter ID choices.
By the way, vote Democrat.
More actually a bit on this topic in just a moment, but first it's time for a preview of Weekends with Alex Witt. Hi, Alex.
Hello to you, Melissa. Let's get